and let us all do we can to build a better future. We've got a bonus story for all of you. And since Daniel Upgar's not here, again, we do hope that he gets better. Tune in Monday to see if Daniel's here. Building up like a suspense almost in a way.
Right,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Next time on HLM.
Next time.
Or no, on Hardlands Media.
Better yet. Next time on Hardlands Media, who will be in the second co-host seat?
Will Daniel make his great return?
There we go. All right. So let's move on now to our final segment. What is going on? It's Jamal Bowman. Again, huge shout out to Case Study QB. Follow him on Twitter because he's into corporate media, so we don't have to. Again, Jamal Bowman, not taking any punches. Let's see what he's got to say.
Congressman-elect Jamal Bowman of New York. Congressman, welcome. I just want to remind our viewers that you defeated a fellow Democrat in the primary earlier this year, 16-term Congressman Eliot Engel, who is chairman of the powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much for joining me now. First question is, do you think Joe Biden is doing enough to keep his promise to pick an administration that reflects America?
Well, I think it's important for us to have racial diversity, obviously. It's also important for us to have gender diversity. And as we saw, he picked an all-female communications team, which is historic and huge. But I think ideological diversity is most key here. And we need to make sure that President-elect Joe Biden is picking as many progressives to his cabinet as possible. The people have spoken. They came out in droves. They organized across the country to help Joe Biden get elected. And the people in grassroots spaces organized when they helped him get elected. They demanded action on climate change. They demanded
and has
action
he so
on.
Far?
I'm sorry?
Are you satisfied with the way that the Biden transition has answered that call you're talking about, has put progressives that you're describing in key posts?
Well, we support people like Janet Yellen, people like John Kerry, and some others. But when I hear names like Rahm Emanuel and Bruce Reed, you know, it makes my skin crawl. You know, Rahm Emanuel covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald as mayor in Chicago. He closed elementary schools. He closed mental health institutions. And Bruce Reed is a deficit hawk and a master of austerity budgets. So we cannot have anyone like that in the Biden cabinet, especially as we deal with the coronavirus and as we deal with an economic depression and racial reckoning in our time. So when I hear names like that, I get worried. But so far, I see diversity and ideology. I would like to see more progressives chosen, particularly as we look at a position like Secretary of Education, which obviously I'm passionate about.
I mean, Bruce Reed is definitely a moderate. Rahm Emanuel.
Okay, real quick, before we move on to the second video, again, you know, I do respect Jamal Bowman for his work and how he's able to defeat Eliot Engel, but Jamal, John Kerry and Janet Yellen are not progressives. I mean, I really like how this time CNN did not silence him. In fact, you know, in case some of you may not remember, we actually covered a clip that Case Study QB sent us where as soon as Jamal Bowman brought up Rahm Emanuel shutting down 54 Chicago public schools and half the mental health facilities and the shooting of and how his administration covered up the shooting of Laquan McDonald, they somehow lost his feed. Multi-million-dollar news media organization just, you know, cuts the feed. You know, I guess it happens out there. But at least he was able to speak his mind and tell, you know, his thoughts on the on Rahm Emanuel potentially being in Biden's administration. Let's play the second video.
He considers himself a progressive, and he's in line with most of the things that you believe.
Well, progressives don't close elementary schools. Progressives open up more schools and lower class size and invest in public education, and they don't bend the knee to the charter school lobby. So I disagree with that.
Okay, Mr. Bowman, I want to ask you about something that President Obama said this week. He made some news when he warned activists not to use what he calls snappy slogans like defund the police. You tweeted the following in response. You tweeted, "Damn, Mr. President, didn't you say Trayvon could have been my son in 2014? Black Lives Matter was too much. In 2016, Kaepernick was too much. Today, discussing police budgets is too much. The problem is America's comfort with Black death, not discomfort with slogans. And quickly, I want to play for you something else that President Obama said in a different interview this week when asked specifically about defunding the police.
No, because I think the phrase implies that somehow we could do without the police, or that the police are the only source of our problem. But what I would do is rethink how we do policing in a lot of communities.
So what he and others are saying is it's the branding, defund the police. It's bad messaging because it turns people off to the real reforms that you are trying to put forward. What is your response and your take on that? Do you think there's something to that?
Defund the police does not mean abolish the police. It means a dramatic reduction in the number of police in our poor communities, and particularly our poor Black and brown communities. Historically, when our communities have needed jobs, they didn't bring us jobs. They brought us police, and they created a system of mass incarceration. And we live in a country where if you're Black or brown, you're more likely to be killed by police, and more likely to be incarcerated, and more likely to not afford bail. So we're focusing on this slogan, defund the police, but where are the resources to bring jobs into our communities? Where are the resources to...
So before we play our final video, again, do you notice how Jamal Bowman just actually took command of that and even called out Barack Obama? Number one, Obama did say Trayvon Martin could be my son. And Black Lives Matter started under Obama's term as president, his second term. Again, the whole idea of Colin Kaepernick kneeling was too much even during the Obama administration. And Obama, remember, during the height of the George Floyd protests, told the NBA basketball players, don't go on strike, keep on playing basketball. Don't go on strike, play basketball. He ended that. Wouldn't that have been a sight to see, if seeing those NBA players go on strike and stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter? It would have been a sight, but Obama stopped it. And then Obama saying defund the police is a terrible slogan. And here's the thing. When it comes down to challenging the establishment, nothing is good enough. When it comes down to taking away their narrative, they're going to say, no, you got to rename it. You got to rename it. You got to rename it. And as soon as you let the establishment hijack a movement, you're going to be stuck in a situation like Time's Up is in, where you have politicians and celebrities and people with power dictating what can and cannot be done, and eventually they lose their mission statement. Jamal Bowman saying, look, we need to have real fundamental reform. You just can't solve everything with a hammer. We're going to need social workers. We're going to need to invest into our schools and community centers. We're going to need to invest into mental health facilities. We're going to need to invest into our infrastructure. But militarizing the police and having these ridiculous budgets, it's too much. We need to invest into education. We need to stop this whole idea of the pipeline to prison, because we build more prisons than schools in this country because of this ridiculous war on drugs, and it's mostly targeted African American and Latino communities. If we are going to get better, we need to fundamentally change how our system is. And we cannot rely on establishment Democrats like Obama to control the narrative. Because again, Obama himself has said that he is to the right of Nixon. That's nothing to be proud of. No one wants to be to the right of Nixon. Let's play that final video.
Where are the resources to deal with the issue of housing and food insecurity? We're not talking about any of that. We're worried about a slogan. And lastly, only 5% of police work is focused on violent crimes: rape, homicide, aggravated assault. The other 95% can be handled by other agencies, mental health institutions, domestic violence professionals, etc. So we've been doing policing all wrong for decades. In some cities, 40% of the budget goes toward policing, and police are terrorizing Black and brown communities. The evidence is clear across the country. So we have to do something different and not allow Republicans to flip a talking point on its head and make us respond to it. This is about reimagining our country and building back better in a way that uplifts Black communities and not leaves them oppressed.
Well, I look forward to seeing the kind of legislation you put forward now that you are actually going to be a member of Congress, and how you're going to use your voice in the United States House of Representatives. Thank you so much for joining me. We have a lot more to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be able to do that in the weeks and months ahead.
Thank you so much.
Oh, God, I hate CNN. You know, there's a lot more that could have been done in that segment instead of giving him like 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes of his time. There was a lot more issues which you know, that reporter, that pundit could have done. But remember, this is corporate media. They got to be fast. They can't talk about controversial subjects. They can't talk about things that are going to make people upset. They can't talk about things that are fundamentally wrong in this country. So the pundit quickly was like, okay, we got to end up. Goodbye. No. That is a 30 to 40-minute interview talking to Jamal Bowman, who was there standing in solidarity with the protesters. And what did the incumbent on whom he defeated say? If there wasn't a protest, if there wasn't an election, I wouldn't be out here. The establishment system has to be broken. And you have to call out the hypocrisy of unchecked corruption at all levels, at the state and federal. And I do wish Jamal Bowman all the best, and I do hope that now he's in the Democratic Party, he doesn't lose his way. Tends to happen. We need to have alternative parties, new major parties to step up. We need to have real fundamental change. And we need to break the monopolies that control over this government and our media. And we cannot hero worship politicians. I know, look, a lot of people might have rose-colored glasses on when they think about Obama. But under Obama, we got rid of habeas corpus. Under Obama, those cages south of the border were built. Under Obama, we went from 2 wars to 7. Under Obama, the Black Lives Matter movement started. Neoliberalism is not a cure. It is a virus that is sickening and is breaking our country apart. And we got to break that system. But in order for that to happen, the people have to say no more.